Hi, my name's Anne, and I'm the lucky winner of the October Soul Sister Challenge. I put my winnings towards a set of the Marabu mixed media art spray. To test drive them, I just chose an already constructed page within one of my old journals. I created a quick mask out of a scrap piece of paper to protect the artwork that was already there. The page itself was already pre-primed with a base coat of colour. First, I applied the spray by spraying through the stencils, making sure that I used any of the overflow on a spare page. I'll admit now that I'm not the biggest fan of using sprays. I don't particularly like the mess that it makes. So why buy them, you might ask? I really like the consistency of the paint within the bottles and how versatile the product is. The number one draw card for me to try this product is once it's dry, it's permanent. Unlike the Delusion sprays and the watercolors that I own, once this product's dry, it doesn't move. And this is a fantastic quality, as I love to build layers. Nothing would frustrate me more than having something that I really liked and I just decided that it needed a little bit more shading or a little bit more highlight. I'd add another color and a few things would happen. One, it would all blend and move together. Or secondly, the highlight colors that I would use, the underneath colors or the pigments would just come through. So I could never get that crisp white highlight that I love. As you would have noticed by now, the colors are quite transparent as well. So this is fantastic for layering. So each layer peeks through. As you will also notice, I use the sprays to actually tint the paint that I'm using, whether it's the salmon dabber paint that I'm using for the flesh color or the white gesso that I'm using either for the eyes or the hair. A little of this paint goes a long way, so I use it sparingly and just dab it a little bit at a time on my Teflon mat. Here you can see I use it as a shade color and I go over the top of the stencil that's already dry. And guess what, girls? It doesn't move. Here I pick up one of my polychromos pencils. I use these quite a lot to do some little finer details and also some of the shading around the face a little later on. The art spray takes really well on top of the pencil and doesn't bead at all. I add a white band to the top of a dress and there's absolutely no bleed through at all. Here I use a fine point Indian ink pen. Now, if I'm working on top of a layer of paint and I work quickly, I can remove this if I make a mistake. The Indian ink doesn't set until it's dry, so it gives you a little time to just mop up mistakes. I use a colored pencil, again, just to introduce some more depth into my design. I want to make her lips pop a little more, so I pick up my Faber-Castell pitch pen, remembering it's full of Indian ink, so I have that time to manipulate it while it's still wet. So I just use my paintbrush and I drag down some of the colour from the top lip into the bottom. Wanting to introduce some more shade colour, I just unscrew the screw top or the pump and I drag it on there and I just use my paintbrush to blend it out. For the hair, I decide to use some gesso and I just add the spray again just by dabbing it onto my Teflon mat and mixing it in with my gesso to make a nice lemon color. Here I add a thin layer of gesso just with a damp piece of paper towel because I've got these new paints, so let's just try another color. Now the other reason that I've actually added a layer of gesso here is I want to see how the sprays react on top of the gesso because you'll find a lot of colors actually soak into it and they become a lot more pastel, and this is exactly what's happened. If the paper was unprimed, it'd be a lot more vibrant. As I've mentioned earlier, you don't have to use these as a spray. For the hair, I've just unscrewed the top and used the plastic tube to create some texture within her hair. And the eyes, I've just dipped in my fine liner and again added some contrast. To finish off my page, I just decide to stencil a few words there. First, I use a slate grey and then I pick up my stencil and move it ever so slightly to the right and also in an upward motion. And then I use a black and I get like a cast shadow effect. I've had a lot of fun creating this piece this afternoon and experimenting with the new Marabu art sprays. For me, I'd have to personally give them a 10 out of 10. I love that once a layer's dry, it's permanent. It doesn't matter how many layers that I apply over the top. The initial layers stay permanent and do not move. I hope I've shown you a few ways that you can use this particular product. Just because it comes in a spray bottle doesn't mean you have to use it as a spray. Thank you for watching, and thank you to Soul Sisters for hosting such wonderful challenges.